until they hit the teenage years. And then
All right, good evening, everyone. It is 5:30, and I will call this policy meeting to order. Ms. Dooley, may we please have a roll call?
Yes, you may. Amy Levy.
Here.
Greg Schneider.
Present.
Allison Simro.
Present.
The roll reflects that all members are present.
Thank you so much. Next on the agenda is the approval of the agenda. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All right, there's a motion and a second to approve tonight's agenda. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
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 All right, that motion passes unanimously. Next up, we have the minutes. Is there a motion to approve the minutes from our February 2nd policy meeting?
So moved.
Second.
All right, there's a motion and a second on the floor. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
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 All right, that motion passes unanimously, and that brings us to 2A, Policy 377. All right, Ms. Simro, I will yield the floor to you first. Do you have any questions, comments, or adjustments for Policy 377?
I just have one on page 2, where it says topics in the school district of Beloit. That athletic and activity handbook will include but are. I think we should add are, but are not limited to. That's all I got.
Okay. Board Member Schneider, same question, Policy 377.
I have nothing at this time.
Okay, I don't as well. All right, if you don't mind, if we could just approve them as a group, so with the rules 1, 2, and we also have 3 this evening, unless anyone opposes to that. All right. Okay, that brings us to Policy 377, Rule 1. Before we dig in, just to be consistent with our numbering system, are we doing a number, capital letter, and then Roman numeral, and then if we need to, we go back to numbers? Is that accurate, Ms. Dooley?
That is, and I will adjust it on this policy.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much. And then the other thing that I saw that was reoccurring is that sometimes titles are capitalized and sometimes they aren't, like coach, advisor, et cetera. Is everyone okay if we just consistently capitalize those titles?
Yes.
Perfect. Thank you so much. All right, so let's take it a page at a time. Ms. Simmeru, anything on page 1 for Policy 377, Rule 1?
Yes, ma'am. In the first local jurisdiction, we have a his and her. I'd like to be changed to their. And under that, at the first bullet on 2, it says, who shall review the violation?
Could you repeat, my apologies, could we back up? The first his and her, where are you seeing that in number 1?
Under 2, it's number 1, and then a, and then I'm under 2, student athletes in grade 6, 7, and 8 are under the jurisdiction of his, her.
Okay.
And then the next bullet point under there, there is an extra space after administrator, and then it's who shall review the violation.
Got it. Thank you so much.
And then we go down to number 2, under B. I'm wondering, this is a question, it says, in an emergency, the rescue squad, are we talking about in-building, or are we talking about emergency medical services? Because a rescue squad is completely different. I was just curious. Emergency medical services would be consistent of having an ambulance called. The rescue squad does life-saving technique, but they don't transport. So I was just wondering which one we're referring to, if it should be changed or if it's good as is.
Yeah, that does seem very Chicago Fire for the rescue. Squad 3. Okay, please give us the verbiage you said with the emergency medical. I
Yeah.
missed the last part.
I think it should say in an emergency, the emergency medical services shall be called
Okay.
rather than rescue squad. And that is all I have for page 1.
All right, so is everyone comfortable changing rescue squad to emergency medical services? Yeah. Okay, thank you, everyone. Board Member Schneider, same question. We'll isolate comments and concerns to page 1 at this time.
Just the ones that have already been mentioned.
All right, I have a couple questions. For 3, and my apologies because I feel like we described this, but I couldn't remember the response, so my apologies in advance if this is redundant. When it says athletic budgets, since the policy talks about athletic and activity programs, I believe the budgets are handled differently. So you handle all the athletic budgets. Are the activity budgets handled at the building level?
Yes.
Yes? Okay. Could we put that in there because it does cover athletics and activities, and right now we're just talking about the athletic budgets, but no mention of activities budgets, in case people have questions.
Yes, we'll add that. We'll put a B in there and speak to the activity budgets.
Okay, thank you so much. And then
I
for,
have a question.
yes,
If we're putting a B under budget preparation,
yes,
so are
ma'am.
we going to move the period that starts, or the sentence that starts activity budgets to B then?
You lost me with the activity. So it'll be 3B. So activity budgets are determined and monitored by the building principal. Would that be accurate? Or building administrator?
Okay, after the first sentence, it talks about the activity budgets.
Oh, please ignore me. I completely missed that second sentence.
Okay.
No,
Me too,
we're
I
good.
missed it too. Because I was saying director of athletics and activities, so
Right.
I inserted an and in there. So I took out the period. I apologize.
Okay, so activity budgets, are they established by the business office or by the building administrator?
They are set at the business office but monitored by the administration. So it's a collaborative effort.
Okay, could we clarify? So activity budgets are prepared. Okay,
We can change
I guess we
established
can
to
have
prepared.
timing. Are prepared at the same time. Okay, so determined by the business office and monitored by the building administrator.
Yes.
All right, thank you. Appreciate your patience. Okay, and then 4, when it talks about equipment and supplies. So my question is, the original, like two renditions ago, said the board provides funds for the purchase of, and then it goes into durable and effective equipment, et cetera. And the reason why I would like to keep that, remember I talked about how it was at the band and they were talking about the expectations that we would fundraise to purchase equipment.
Correct.
So I just want to be clear that the board provides funding for equipment, for athletic and activities, et cetera. So if we can include that, the board provides funds for the purchase of, and then pick up with durable. All right, so the last page of this policy, Board Member Simra, any adjustments?
Yeah, I just have one. If we go under 5A, where it starts about midway, and then there's contact with officials/judges shall be made by the period. So I'm assuming that should say the director athletics activities inserted there.
Yeah, and it also says assistant principal for athletics and activities, so that'll be changed to director of athletic and activities, is that correct?
Yeah.
Comma,
Correct.
coach/advisor, which will be capitalized, and the official judge. Were you talking about a different location?
No, that's the one.
Okay.
Correct, it should say Director of
Okay.
Athletics.
And that's all I have for page 2.
Okay. Board Member Schneider, same question for page 2?
Same spots.
Okay, well, look at us, we are in sync. All right, I'll go up to C.
Point of clarity,
Yes, please.
after, we were talking about the contact with officials and judges shall be made by who did we insert?
Director of Athletics and Activities.
Okay, thank you.
No problem. And while we're there, the Director of Athletics and Activities shall send our contracts or verbal written agreement is made between should that be and help me with the title, the athletic supervisor? Is that the person that should be there? Because it says the Director of Athletic and Activities, so that's currently you, shall be made, and then all the people it should be made between. Instead of Assistant Principal of Athletics and Activities, should that be the athletic supervisor?
That should be the Director of Athletics and Activities.
So, but that would say you would be sending the contract to yourself and these other people. Should we just omit? Because it's coming from you, so you'll have it.
Yeah, before I send it out, there has to be an agreement between myself and the coaches and the official.
Okay,
So that's what I'm interpreting.
okay,
And said that there has to be a verbal or written agreement between the Director of Athletics and Activities, the coach advisor, and the official.
okay, official session, perfect, all right. So if we could go back up to that same page to C, the last sentence right before coaches/advisors shall, there's an additional space there after days, and then we'll capitalize advisor. And then if we jump down to 5, contracts, since that's technically serving as a header, should it be official and then capital C contracts, and then space dash space, capital C contracts to begin that sentence? And then towards the bottom of 5, we already addressed that. And then 5B, game/competition/performance, capital C contracts. And then again, another capital C to begin that sentence. And then the same pattern for C, after coach and advisor, capital C contracts, and then capital C to begin that sentence. Okay, everyone good on policy 377, rule 1? Perfect. All right, moving on to 377, rule 2. Just a curiosity, is there a reason that rule is in all caps? Yeah, I forgot the response. Is there a reason for it, or should we just lowercase the ULE?
I remember that before we said that it was because it was the title of the policy and they didn't want to confuse it with the word.
Oh, okay,
Wow.
that is
Thank you.
fine with me. Thank you, Ms. Julie. All right, so policy 377, rule 2 will begin with page 1 of 9. Board Member Simrau, any adjustments?
I just have a question on one, it would be under one, it's 4. The last sentence, the district will use a data method. Do we want to insert what kind, or be more specific, or is that okay with everybody?
I had that highlighted too, and I was like, maybe I just don't get it. But if
Yeah.
everyone else knows what that is,
That would be Skyward.
okay.
But I would leave it as is, just in case the district changes from Skyward.
Can we say data tracking system?
Yeah,
Say that.
something more clear.
Yeah, yeah. Either software or system, but data tracking. I think that's broad enough that it gives us some room, but it's specific enough that people understand what that is. All right, Board Member Simra, anything else on page 1?
I believe that's all I have for page 1.
Okay. Board Member Schneider, same question?
Nothing on page 1.
Okay, and I'm good. All right, as we move to page 2, Board Member Simra?
Yeah, just the verbiage in F, academic intervention during any grading period, and then term is in parentheses. And I know that there are definitions below. Should we just have that be term instead of period and term in parentheses?
Do you feel like it's redundant?
A little, yeah.
Okay. Dr. Keiser, you have any feedback on that?
We typically use the word term. I'm looking at Joel to see if he has any objections.
I do not have any objections to that.
Okay.
So let's use term.
Yeah.
That's what we use consistently for our grade books and so forth.
Yeah.
Sounds good to me. I'm a fan of consistency. Board Member Simra, anything else on page 2?
Yes, if we go down to 3B, bullet 3 there, failure to comply with item A, should that be,
Capitalize. Is it referring to equipment care?
that's what I'm wondering, what exactly it's referring to? you
Yeah.
know, and if it should be capitalized or changed?
Well, one, is it referring to equipment care? And if yes, then we just need to capitalize that A. Or if it's referring to something else, then we need to switch it out.
Yeah.
I believe, sorry, I didn't mean to cut anybody off, I wasn't looking.
No, you're fine.
I believe something has been changed, but, because that should refer to B1.
Yeah. So I think,
So it might have been changed in the editing process.
Okay.
Just didn't catch that.
So can we change the lowercase a to capital letter B, Roman numeral 1? Okay.
after that, then in the very last sentence, there's C3, all students shall conduct themselves in such a way as to reflect positively on themselves, their family, and I think it should be their school or the school instead of just school.
Okay, would you propose their school?
Yes,
Okay.
and that's all I have.
All right, thank you. Board Member Schneider, same question.
I have nothing at this point.
Okay. All right, the only thing I have for page 2 that hasn't been covered, no, that one's fine. Okay, so C, Roman numeral I, when it talks about, okay, let me just read the sentence. Team/activity members shall also return to school via the same mode of transportation unless a parent or legal guardian gives permission to travel home with a parent or legal guardian. Should we specify like so for example, I don't have to give my husband permission to pick up our children. So if we put another, and maybe we don't even need parent or legal guardian with another adult. Does that make sense?
Yes, let's see here. So, parents could be split up.
Yes.
So the student could go with one parent or the other. So you could give your son permission to go with dad, and maybe mom and dad don't live together.
Okay, so unless there's like a court order or a situation like
Right.
that, even if families are living separately, parents still have rights to pick up their children unless we're informed that they shouldn't for some legal reason. Is that accurate?
Correct.
So my reading of this is whether or not you live with the other parent, and Attorney Love, I see your hand, I'm gonna come to you in just a minute. Is that necessary, and was the intent, like if I would like my neighbor to pick up my child, like another adult who is not a parent or legal guardian, was that the intent?
That is not the intent.
Oh, okay.
Yes, because the student should go home with a parent or guardian or ride the bus. We cannot release a student to someone else's, to another adult or anything like that.
Okay, the way it's written, okay, so the same mode of transportation, unless a parent or legal guardian gives permission to travel home with a parent or legal guardian. So unless I'm
Yeah.
completely missing this, I'm either giving my child permission to ride home with me, or I'm giving my child permission to ride home with their other parent or guardian. And my question is that necessary? Because I would think gives permission, because my other question is, what does that mean? Can I call? Can I text? Can I do a note? Is that in person? And Attorney Love, you jump in because you might be able to clear this all up.
Yeah, my understanding of this language was that the requirement is that a student travels on the mode of transportation, which is usually the bus that's provided by the school, both to the event and home. If the student is going to go home in any mode of transportation other than that mode, that bus, there has to be written permission. So that everybody knows this student is going home with mom or dad or some other legal guardian. So even if you're the parent and you want to take your child home from the event rather than have them ride the bus, the policy calls for some permission to be granted so that we have a record that the parent asked for and was granted permission for that student to use some other mode of transportation.
Perfect. And usually that happens with a sign-out sheet. Is there another way that can happen, or are you comfortable with us specifying you must sign your student out?
I agree it should be written. We've used verbal and eyesight and communication that way, as opposed of checking out their student. Or their
Okay.
child.
What language would you be comfortable with? So the same mode of transportation unless a parent or legal guardian signs their child out, or I'm sure someone can make it sound more eloquent than that. Does that sheet have a name?
It does not have a name,
Okay.
no.
Unless the parent or guardian signs the sign-out sheet, or Attorney Love, help us with the language for that, please.
Unless the parent or legal guardian, if you call it the sign-out sheet, I just don't like saying sign and sign again. But signs the student,
Okay, how about unless the parent or guardian gives permission via the sign-out sheet or via a sign-out sheet?
I think that's great.
Okay, is everyone comfortable with that? All right, last call for page 2.
I have one other thing.
Yes.
And it's just a note. Under B3, where we already addressed the referral to item A, it also then says, and/or disciplinary consequences as prescribed under suspension.
Yep.
I think what you want to do there is insert the appropriate reference to whatever letter and number that one is. And that's on the next page, I think. But if you can make a note that we need to correct that.
So it's
after-
number 6, and it was calculating suspensions. And so are you saying number 6, which that S needs to fall off, so it's just suspension? Are you saying include number 6 so they know exactly where it is?
Yes, but I'm thinking that because when you're talking about the consequences, that's number 5, I think. Under the discipline is where we spell out the code of conduct discipline. That's where we spell out the
So you're saying keep it broad
suspension
and not
and
just suspension?
Right. I think you want, because what you're saying on the previous one, now I got to go back up to the other page. What we're saying is a failure to comply with what was item A, shall
Yep.
result in suspension and/or disciplinary consequences as prescribed under, quote, suspension, end quote. I think what you want to say is in suspension and/or disciplinary consequences as prescribed under,
5, Code of Conduct Discipline.
yeah,
Okay.
yep.
Did you get that, Ms. Dooley?
Yep.
Okay. Thank you so much, Attorney Love. All right, we're going to move on to page 3. Board Member Simrau, any adjustments?
Yeah, just a couple here. In 4 overnight trips, there's a he, his, her, that should be there. And then,
Hold on. For personal conduct of students?
no.
Oh,
At the
okay.
very
So
top, so that would be-
3C4.
Yes.
Got it. All right.
That should be there. And then directly under that, N5, coaches, advisors shall have the responsibility for students' behavior. I was thinking we should maybe go with shall be responsible for students' behavior. And that's all I have.
Okay. Board Member Schneider, any adjustments on page 3?
I have nothing else.
Okay. If we go to 4B, towards the end of that sentence, it says a copy of the Beloit Athletic and Activity Code. The name is Athletics and Activities Code. Can we drop Beloit? And then, okay, activity codes and attend a code meeting. Is there a reason that's capitalized?
Joel?
No, I didn't, no
Okay.
reason why that'd be capitalized.
Okay, I was just to make sure I didn't miss anything.
We did discuss that, and you mentioned to me that that was the actual title of the
Oh,
meeting.
that's the title of the meeting?
Yes, no, okay, now I know what you're talking about, yes.
Okay.
Yes, that
Thank
is
you
the
so
title.
much. All right. So we'll drop Beloit and it'll say Athletics and Activities Code and attend a code meeting, capital C, capital M, with the Director of Athletics and Activities to review and sign. Can we just say the Athletics and Activities Code? That just makes to review and sign acknowledgement of unless that's there for a specific reason. Because
No.
if they sign it, they're acknowledging it. It's kind of in there. So if we could adjust that to athletic and activities and review and sign the Athletics and Activities Code. All right. And that's all I have for 3. So moving on to page 4,
If I could just jump in there for a second.
please.
I just wanted to confirm that the policy requires attendance at this meeting, that it's not a situation where the student athlete may go to the meeting, the parent would be provided with the documents, and that you would just accept a signature. It's an actual requirement that a parent attend this meeting, because that's what the policy is saying.
Right, you're just confirming that that's what it should say, correct?
I'm just confirming, right, that that's what you do in practice, that you
Now, just for clarification, and I'm a softball player and I get my 4th violation, I can still be in the play.
Yes. That's
Oh.
what, as it reads right now, yes.
Is that the intent?
Well, I did not come up with that scenario.
Yeah.
Because I didn't come up with that scenario. So we would have to set that precedent right now as to if we want that to apply to athletics and activities, that you would have to be out a calendar year.
Okay, so spoiler alert, I am going to suggest that we hold Rule 3, because I think a couple things in there are vague, and I would like the same level of clarity that's in this beautiful policy. So do we want to take a beat and think about that? Do board members have strong, so I'm a softball player, 4th offense. I can no longer play any sport for 1 calendar year, but I can still be in the play representing the school. How do we feel about that?
I don't feel good about that. I feel like if it's your 4th offense and you're suspended, I mean, I think it should, at that point, probably cover activities and athletics.
Okay.
That's just my thinking there.
No, I appreciate the feedback. Board Member Schneider? I know I'm putting everyone on the spot tonight.
I think I would lean more to allowing them, if the violation happened in an athletic event, to allow activities to continue.
Okay. And not to sway you, because I appreciate and respect your opinion, but under the examples, and it's not an exhaustive list, but harassing, lying, possessing false identification, fighting, forgery, cheating, plagiarism, insubordination, suspension, unexcused, we're all literate, you can read the list. Do we want to make that decision tonight? And it'll just go to the full board, and I'll pull it and say, this is something we were thinking about, and make sure everyone's clear what we want their input on anything, but we specifically want their input in this? Or do we want to hold it and think about it for a minute and then make the decision? I'm fine with either one.
I don't want to complicate this further
Oh, please.
for you, but to add into that thought process, the way that this is set up right now, it's easy to think of it in terms of, okay, you're an athlete, these are the penalties if you violate any of these rules. But as we all know, many students engage in more than one athletic, one sport or more than one activity. So these infractions that you've specified can result in penalties are not specific to having occurred in an athletic event or an activity. Rather, they are related to their conduct as a student.
Yep.
And if they have that conduct as a student, then they have these penalties. So let's say you have a student who was insubordinate to a teacher. First offense. That student is a football player who also happens to participate in the play, theater, the
Yep.
play. Is that student then going to be, the first violation would be suspended from one football event, but would also, because they have an activity, would have
5
the
hours of community
consequence.
service. Yeah.
Correct. And what if that person is involved in 2 or 3 activities? Then is it 5 hours for each one of those activities? I think there's something where it's referenced, it's not cumulative. So if they have 3 activities, they get 1 activity penalty. Or if they have more than 1 sport, they get 1 sport penalty.
May I interrupt for clarification from Mr. Beard? Can a student play, okay, can a student, I think it's easier with athletics, because if you have an offense, it's 5 hours of community service, and I think you're done. I wouldn't say, like, if I'm in MEO, the play, and student senate, and I have an insubordination, then it's 15 hours, because I don't think that's the intent of it. If I have a first violation, it's 5 hours, and then I'm back to all my activities. But first question, can a student participate in more than one athletic sport at a time?
Typically, no, but it has been done. It depends on the sport. So, for example, a student could play boys soccer and play football.
Okay. So I am a boys soccer and football player at the same time, and I have a first violation. So am I suspended for one game per sport? And if the incident happened outside of the sport, like in the classroom, do I get to pick where I serve that penalty, or is it both?
No, it would just be it would be one sport.
Okay, one sport. And then do I get to pick?
No, because one sport's predominantly more than the other. So it would be the one that you are primarily in. So in the example I gave you was boys soccer. Primarily plays boys soccer, goes and kicks for the football team. So
So I can't be like the star soccer player and the quarterback?
it'd be tough, but it's possible.
Okay.
Yeah, it'd
Okay.
be tough, but it's possible.
And I don't want us to have the burden of figuring out every possible iteration, but I would like for us, like the things that are foreseeable, I would like for those to be cleared up since we are going through the process of adjusting policy. Board Member Semrau, and then Dr. Kieser.
Yeah, I just have one thing to add here. In activity consequences in C there, it does say type 1 offenses are not cumulative, but students will be ineligible for future activities and/or athletic participation until all consequences are served in full. So it says that for activity consequences, but I don't see the same for athletics.
Okay. Go ahead, Dr. Kieser.
No, I was going to say, I think Attorney Love brought the key piece in there is that there's certainly incidents that happen during an activity or during a sport, but many of the code violations are things such as person gets caught at a drinking party some evening. That's going to affect their entirety of their extracurricular activities, both activities and athletics. The delineation here was to say, how do we delineate that offense as if they're an athlete, and then if they also happen to be in an activity, how it would be delineated. So not cumulative, but it does affect both. And that's a great catch. We should have the consistent language in both areas.
So we'll have it in activities and athletics. Help me understand how you're defining cumulative, because it sounds like it is. If I have an offense, it can affect me in my athletic and also my activity. Isn't that considered cumulative?
I would say it's parallel because you may have Joel and I might both be on the same swim team, but Joel also is in the theater, and so we both get caught. I'm only participating in one thing; he's participating in two things, and so the consequence covers all of his extracurricular activities. If I were to all of a sudden join debate club and I'm coded, that activity advisor would be noted that I was coded, and so then I would have, my understanding is I would have to fulfill that before I could participate. Am I interpreting that correctly?
I think that's kind of where we're at right now with the decision we have
Stop
to.
talking because we're making. Okay, so all right.
These are type 1 violations.
Correct.
Yes,
Correct.
ma'am.
Yes.
Okay.
Right.
Okay, so let's say I'm caught fighting. I was in a fight, right? It is currently my soccer season. So I have that one game suspension. How long does this hang with you? Because if next semester I join the play, do I need to serve that fighting consequence from last semester now that I'm in the play? Or is it just the term or the semester that we are in? And then when the new term starts, do I get a fresh slate?
No, it is the next event for an athlete. So if I get into a fight and we have a game on Friday,
Yep.
I'm out on that game of Friday. I've served my suspension. I'm done. I can move on.
Okay, so let's say that's term 1. If term 2, I'm in the play, that's not going to follow me, correct?
The number of violations follows you, but that one that one game suspension that you already served that suspension. That's not going to carry over to.
So the consequence applies for the activities and athletics that you are currently involved in.
Correct.
All right, thank you. Do we need to specify that?
I don't think so, but I'll defer to Joel, since how
And then I'll
he's the
come to
one
you, Board Member Simrau.
I don't know if we need
who
to.
figures it out.
And I think that one, I think, is the least complicated. So the consequence applies to any athletics and sports the student is currently involved in. So it's not hanging over your head once you clean it up for an athletics. You don't have to worry about if I join an activity,
Correct.
I have to have that penalty for an activity that I wasn't involved in when the violation happened.
The only way it hangs over your head is first term, I did nothing. I didn't play anything. I wasn't in any activity. Term 2 comes, I want to play basketball. That consequence is still there until you serve it.
How do we feel? Board Member Simrau, go ahead. Thank you for that.
Okay, so I feel like, so I am in theater and I am playing basketball. And so I am in both of them right now. So I would have to concurrently serve both of these,
Yep.
right? But if I say I am just in basketball and then in the spring I decide to do a play, do I come back and do anything, or am I good?
Nope.
No,
So I think maybe if we just add that if a student has a violation and is in both an athletic and an activity, they will do both a minimum violation.
How about the consequence impacts the athletic or activity that the student is currently involved in? But see, the bit of information you just gave us, I think conflicts with the spirit of what we're saying. Because if I'm not currently involved in an athletic or an activity and I get into a fight, my personal opinion, I'll serve whatever if I was in school suspension, whatever the school consequence is. But once that's resolved, if I then join soccer, I don't think I should have to miss my first game because I was in a fight prior to participating in soccer.
Right.
I understand what you're saying.
All right, so let me say this, because we can be specific in policy if everyone's on the same page. Do you have a problem with that? Or does that work for you? Because I understand that might be different than what's currently happening.
I guess if I am a student, and I guess you can go a couple different ways, and I don't know if we can actually paint the exact picture in the policy because each situation may be different.
Yeah.
So if I don't play a fall sport, and I am a junior, but everybody knows I'm a basketball player. You know, everybody knows I played basketball my last 2 years. And fall semester, I get into a fight or I get suspended or whatever it may be. Because I'm not in a current sport, I don't have a consequence athletically.
Correct.
Okay, so then I can go and play basketball and be good with it.
I would say yes, and the reason why I'm personally okay with that is you're going to have a school consequence. You're still involved in school, and you're going to have a school consequence. I'm not comfortable, unless there's something I'm missing, and I'm completely willing to be wrong, if a student resolves a violation through a school consequence, and then at some point in the future participates in an athletic or an activity, I'm not comfortable with repenalizing them for something that was already resolved.
I understand that.
Yeah.
I'm gonna just switch gears here. Academically, if I only play basketball, first term, if I don't pass all my classes, I don't get to play basketball. You see what I'm saying?
And the way I see that is you haven't resolved the consequence of not passing your classes. And so that consequence comes when you attempt to play a sport or participate in an activity. Whereas if I got into a fight, they're not Dr. Keister, I'm going to speak for you, and you correct me if I'm wrong. They're not going to say, no, don't bother to suspend him. We'll just wait and see if he plays a sport. Like, you've already remedied that violation. But with let's say I have an F, that violation of having poor grades has not been remedied, and it can be remedied with a consequence in the athletic or activity. Does that make sense?
I understand, yeah, I
Yeah.
understand exactly where you're
Okay, are you opposed to what I just described?
No, I'm not opposed to it.
Okay.
I just would, I think that consistency across how we, like academically, behaviorally, whatever it may be, is just, I'll give you another example.
Please.
Okay, so I do play a fall sport. And, I do play a fall sport, and I get a consequence, okay? It is, let's say it's 50% or whatever. So my fall season is almost over. Does that carry over to my activity as well? If I'm in band?
The way
I
it's
mean-
written now, if you're currently in that sport and band, you're gonna get the hit twice.
You're gonna get hit twice.
So you're gonna get it you're gonna do the athletic consequence and you're gonna do the activity consequence. And I look at that as participating in athletics and activities is a privilege. And so there's more expected of you. But again, if you're in 3 activities, I wouldn't hit you 3 times. You just had that one consequence, whatever level you are at, if it's a first offense, second offense, et cetera. So my only question is, if I have an activities consequence and I'm in 3 you know what? Scratch that, because it's not a game, it's community service. So that takes care of itself. We just have the issue if I'm in more than one athletics, who decides where that consequence is served? And you say the primary sport, and that should cover. We should be good.
Right.
Okay, so,
Can I add something
Please,
to that
sir.
one? So here's where I have a problem with the proposal, what
Yes.
we're talking about right now. If I am in multiple sports, or a sport and an activity at the same time,
yep,
okay, I get hit twice.
Yes.
Let's say I get into a fight. I fight another person who's not involved in the activity or
Yep.
sport at the time. I get hit for a game
and
and
5 hours community
5
service.
hours. But that person I was fighting is also a student athlete. The sport just hasn't started.
Yes,
They miss nothing.
yes.
Yep. And you took the words
I
that I
love
was
this game.
going to say, is that we have, and I've never been an athletic director. I can only speak from the outside looking in, working alongside athletic directors, and the intent of signing the code card. That code card is a 12-month contract, because you are participating in something that is a privilege, not a right. And so you are expected to uphold that standard, which is all of these codes. And so when I was a high school student, there is a person got coded. There were only 2 swim meets left, and was the exact same thing, 50% of a season. That person went out for track, never ran track again, but was a cross-country runner. They went out for tracks for the sole purpose of serving their 50%.
Correct.
You just
code.
convinced me. The two of
then-
you just tag teamed and convinced me.
So that they
Great
could
work,
participate
gentlemen.
in their cross country and swim season the next season.
Okay,
That is
so
correct.
my final question, and then I'm going to yield the floor to my other board. This is so good. I love policy. Okay, who keeps track of this? So let's say you
Yep.
okay, so you have 100 student athletes in the spring. You run all the violations and say, okay, Mary got suspended and that hasn't been resolved, so I need to alert the coach and they need to make sure this. You do that?
So I do that for the students that I know are student athletes previously in their careers. So it's tough for a freshman that has not gone out for a sport yet. So I might not catch that freshman because they only play basketball. They had a consequence in the fall. I don't know that they're going to play basketball. But if it's a junior and I know they're on the basketball team and they're in our system, then I know Yes, I do keep track of that.
So when you get the roster, let's just only talk about freshmen.
Mm-hmm.
When you get freshman rosters for sports, do you run for any violations? And then you'll know if they have any consequences that they need to serve in their season.
I do not.
Okay.
No, I
So
don't.
according to policy, that needs to happen.
Yes, that's what it
Okay.
sounds like.
All right. So it now makes sense to me. Thank you, gentlemen. Board members Simra and Schneider, is there anything that's still remaining that we need to address?
No, I think that they sold me as well. At first I was like, wait a minute, but then I thought about it, and it makes complete sense now.
Yeah, and it made, okay, so if the fight was between you and a non-athlete, I'm like, it's a privilege. But if it's you and another athlete, but they just happen to be out of season,
Correct.
that's where the catch is for me. Okay, Ms. Dooley, help us. We need to make sure that, as Board Member Simro pointed out, that language about, I was just looking at it. The language that's under activity is also included in athletics, so we're consistent, and the offenses are not cumulative. Hopefully that made more sense when you heard it than when I said it. You got it? Okay. Yep. Yes, please add that to athletics as well so we can be consistent. And then do we need a clarifying statement? I'm leaning towards yes, we do, that any code violation. Okay, I think it's clear if I have a code violation and I'm in season, it's going to be addressed. But I do think we need to specify that any code violations that happen out of season will be, and what's the word I'm looking for, resolved once the upcoming season begins.
So,
Yes, ma'am.
sorry.
Okay, can you give me the letter, the capital, the number, the capital letter, the Roman numeral?
It kind of addresses it.
Okay.
When you deal with, okay, this is 5, V1, B,
Yep.
5.
5B5.
Where it says, if at the end of the season there are not enough games or matches, blah, 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 the penalty will be prorated and will extend into the next season in which the student participates.
So see, that is if I'm in a current season and my violation was so egregious that I couldn't resolve it in my current season, then it moves forward. But unless I'm missing something, that doesn't address if I had a code violation and my season has not started yet.
I would change season to sport.
Could we maybe put in that for a current calendar year, consequences will carry over if a sport isn't currently being participated in, something to that extent, so people know that, yes, you may have a consequence, but if you're going to play basketball in the spring, you still have to miss that first game. Just to make it clear to people that that is indeed going to still happen, even if you're not currently in the sport.
Okay, hold that thought, please. Ms. Dooley, give me that number again. You said 5B5. Okay, and then Dr. Kieser, this is like all hands on deck. Please give me your adjustment for that. So stop me when I get to it. If at the end of a season, there are not enough games or matches remaining to satisfy the penalty will be prorated and will extend into this next season in which the
Stop.
student okay, yes.
So instead of season, change season to sport, the next sport in which the student participates. Because then if I'm serving a fall sport and then it extends into winter and I'm a winter athlete, it'll follow me into that next sport.
But what if I'm not currently in a sport?
So then it would still be the next, it would be the next sport that I participate in.
Okay.
Even if it's 2 years down the road.
Got it.
Can I add?
Yes,
at
please.
At the beginning of that, where it says if at the end of a season, just as a proposal, if student is participating or not participating currently, or whatever, can we add that in there? Does that make sense? Let's see. If the student is participating or is not participating, or is participating in a sport that there are not enough games, and then finish it out. Would that help?
No, I think you just confused me.
Okay. So
That's okay.
Instead of if at the end of a season. Okay, so let's just take that part out.
Okay.
Say, if a student is participating in a sport or is at the end of a sport,
How about we just say, if there are not enough games or matches remaining to satisfy a penalty, it'll be prorated into the next sport.
yeah, that works. That's way simpler.
But if I haven't started the season yet, it's not prorated, it's the full consequence.
Correct.
Correct.
Okay, so I like that, but could we say, if there are not enough games or matches remaining to satisfy, or your season hasn't begun?
What if you say, if a violation occurs outside of a student athlete's season, the consequence will be served in the next season in which the student athlete participates.
I say yes to all of that, but just make it a new sentence and trying to edit that. So we'll have one sentence if you're currently participating, and that second sentence is if you are a student athlete or will be, but you have not yet begun your season. So could we just have a new sentence?
So just make a number 6 for if it's outside of a activity or sport.
I don't think it needs to be a number 6, just a second sentence of 5. And then we duplicate that language under activity.
Yep, I agree. We just have the new header in the front. If you are or will be, if you are not in season or will be starting a season.
Whatever Attorney Love just said.
Yep.
That's our new sentence
We'll
on
play back
5.
the
Yeah, roll
recording.
the tape back.
We'll roll the tape back.
Okay,
She started with if the violation occurs.
perfect. And then we'll repeat the sentiment of that for activities. Do you need to head out, Mr. Beard?
Is there a link I can join while I'm driving?
The
No, don't do it while you're
calendar-
driving, though, no. Okay, so here's the thing.
We'll bring back.
Okay. You're good. Thank you, sir. You too. Okay, I think we made it through.
We did.
Look at us. All right. Board Member Simra, anything else on page 4?
No, ma'am.
Okay, Attorney Love, is your hand raised? Is that new? Do you have something to interject?
Oh, no, sorry, that was,
Oh, okay,
That
just
was
didn't want
from
to,
last time.
didn't want to overlook you. Board Member Schneider, anything else for page 4?
No, that's fine.
Okay. All right, deep breath, everyone. Page 5, Board Member Simra, same question. Any adjustments?
I do not have any adjustments for 5.
Okay, same question, Board Member Schneider.
No adjustments on page 5.
Okay, under 3, and I think this is kind of a reoccurring thing, loss of competition, at the very top, third violation, loss of competition or participation for 1 calendar year, in all activities. And then for athletics, we would just repeat that verbiage there. Say again, please. Oh, okay, so on page 5, and we are in number 5, capital letter B, Roman numeral 2, Okay, no, scratch that. On page 5, the very first 3. There we go. All right. Third violation, and we'll just be consistent throughout. So if I missed it somewhere else, please just make sure that the intent is there. That loss of competition or participation for 1 calendar year for all activities, and it'll be the same thing for all sports, just so that we're specific and consistent. Okay, that brings us to page 6. Board Member Simrau, any adjustments?
No adjustments on 6.
Okay. Board Member Schneider?
No adjustments.
Okay. At the top of page 6, since the language is this, okay, I think I just answered my own question. My question was going to be, should we just combine 11 and 12 and say athletic and activity consequences type 3, but it's been separate all along, even though it's the exact same verbiage, I say just keep it separate. All right. When we have the asterisk that's kind of indented to the left, any athlete or activities, that sentence, okay, let me just read it. So any athlete or activities participant convicted of a felony will be suspended from participation for a minimum of 1 calendar year. Restrictions from participation shall be effective from the date of the crime. Should that be date of the conviction, or was that intentional to be date of the crime? And the reason I say that is if I committed a crime on January 1, but I wasn't convicted until the next year, I've already served it. The date of the crime is beyond that 1 calendar year.
Correct. I would agree with you. It should be from
Date of conviction?
conviction.
Okay. Attorney Love, is there anything we're missing in that?
No, I think that's fine.
Okay. And then my other question, so everything that's in,
But if I can,
Please.
if I can add, if you make the suspension from participation tied to, I mean, you say that it's if they're convicted.
Correct.
Because of the time it takes for criminal matters to proceed,
they could be playing
shouldn't we
soccer.
already- well, or it could be gone, and there would never be a consequence. But if you do it from the time that there is an arrest, then you may be penalizing an innocent student because they have not yet been convicted.
But if we change it to date of conviction, doesn't that clear that up? That they've been found in a court of law to be convicted, and then the penalty starts. So we're not penalizing. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right.
So-
And then, yeah, go ahead.
Can I add, under the little Roman numeral 3, type 3 extremely serious violations,
Yes, ma'am.
which was on page 5,
Yep.
you have sub A, which is examples of violations. Mm-hmm. And then numbers 1 through 12. But number 11 should be a sub B, and number 12 should be a sub C, to be consistent with the formatting that has been used on prior.
Yes, thank you for that. So, Ms. Dooley, 11 will be B, and then that capital A and B will be 1 and 2. And then 12 will be B, and then the A and B would be 1 and 2. Yep, absolutely. So if we start on the bottom of page 5 where it says type 3 extremely serious violations, and then we give A and then the list stops at 10. And then 11 should be a lowercase b. And then what is now 11 capital A capital B, that capital A and capital B will be 1 and 2. and then 12 will be B, and then that capital A and B will be 1 and 2.
So 12 will be C then.
No,
Yes, C. Yep. Keep me together, team. Thank you. All right, and then my question, the grouping of information that's indented to the left just above C, does all of that only apply to type 3 extremely serious violations? I believe the answer is yes, but just want to make sure.
the one that we just read about,
So the whole little thing that I bracketed? So just above 6?
yep,
That's indented to the left. All of that is only connected to type 3 extremely serious violations. Is that accurate?
yes.
Okay, good. Okay, so 6, when we, oh, and it doesn't matter now because we changed it from suspension to 5. So that one is now fine. My only question is B. Okay, so the AODA education program, do we want to leave it as it is where all of that is just a description of the program or separate it out? So what I am proposing is that we'll have capital B, AODA educational program, and then Roman numeral 1 would start with students must be enrolled in the district's AODA educational programming before they will begin eligibility to further participate in athletics. And then Roman numeral 2 will be if at the end of the season until the end. I think that would follow the way we've been formatting it, unless there is a reason that all of that is clustered together.
No, I think we can break it out that way.
Okay. Did that make sense, Ms. Dooley?
I see where number 1 starts.
Yep. So number 1 is just that sentence. So Roman numeral I will be students must be enrolled in the district's AODA educational program before they will become eligible to further participate in athletics. And then that last sentence would be Roman numeral 2. Okay. Okay, and just a question under C, Roman numeral 1A, sign up for a student assistance group. Are those provided within our buildings? My only question is where are these provided, or is that an external resource?
I'll have to defer to Joel for that.
Okay. So Ms. Dooley, one, I want to compliment you because the minutes were so helpful because I copy and pasted all of the things you put in those minutes for why policy was being held over, and I kind of pasted that on the policy to make sure we address that. Can you just make note of that we just want to know where those resources are being provided, if it's internal or external for the student assistant groups? All right, now we have arrived at page 7. Board Member Simra, any adjustments?
Just one. Under self-referrals, A in the bold, this is for a first code violation only. I think there should be a period and the underscore should be removed. I think that's it for this page.
Okay. Board Member Schneider, same question, any adjustments?
Nothing else.
Okay, I have a question on under self-referrals B. So should violations occur on school grounds, during the school day, or during any school activity in the district, students will lose the right to exercise the use of the self-referral privilege. And my question is why? So let's say that I make a bad choice and I'm vaping in the bathroom, but you don't catch me, I self-report. But this says if I was doing it on school grounds or at a school activity, I lose my right to self-referral. So I'm wondering, is there a reason for that?
I do not know. I would have to refer to refer to Joel as to why the language is written in there.
Okay,
in
about
that
the
manner.
loss of privilege. Ms. Julie, could you make note of that so we don't lose that? Okay, so self-referrals B, we just need clarification on why students would forfeit their right to self-referral if the infraction that they were not caught for happened on school grounds or during a school activity. Okay, and then my other question was at the bottom of C. Failure to have assessment and continued recommendation follow-up programs shall cause immediate removal from activity participation. Do we need to specify a time in accordance to the consequence, and someone's gonna make it sound better, related to what number violation it is? Because without that specificity, for me, if I'm reading that, that's an indefinite suspension. So like in line with the number of offenses.
Correct. I would
Okay.
say I would say recommended follow-up program will mean removal of the athletic activity participation for the level of offense committed.
Okay. Ms. Julie, do you need us to further polish that? Okay. Perfect. And then 8, additional athletic requirements and responsibilities. Are we intentionally not including activities? Is that just, I just want to make sure that's just specific to additional athletic requirements?
Yes, it's athletic requirements because this is
A physical.
WIA.
Okay. All right. All right, we've made it to page 8. Board Member Simro, any adjustments?
No adjustments for 8.
All right, Board Member Schneider, same question.
No adjustments.
Okay, my only thing is towards the bottom under number 10 with Roman numeral 6. It kind of has some tildes in there for out of season. And then if we go down to Roman numeral 7, it's the same thing for all-star. If we could get those removed. Board Member Simro, page 9, any adjustments?
No, ma'am.
All right, Board Member Schneider, same question.
No adjustments.
Okay. Now let me just do a check-in. We've done a lot of great work. We have a couple questions that still need to be resolved. Okay, so here's the thing. Policy 377, we're good on. Policy 377, Rule 1, we're good on. Rule 2, we still have some unresolved questions. Do we want to approve these individually or in a package? So Policy 377 and the Rules 1 through 3 go together.
I would recommend that we do it as a package. just-
Okay, everyone comfortable with that? Okay, so I don't want us to feel defeated at our April event when we are looking at this for the 3rd time. It will probably be 5 to 10 minutes and we will be able to move forward that whole slate. So policy 377, and so I just wanted to give everybody a little pep talk. All right, policy 377, rule 3, page 1 of 2. Board Member Simra, any adjustments?
Just a question. Under 5, should we have very severe in front of consequences, or should we just say result in consequences? Since we don't have a list of what very severe.
Yeah.
Can you put a pin in that? Because I'm gonna hold on to it. Because I had, thank you. I had a question about that too. Yeah, go ahead, anything else?
Yeah, just one other thing, sorry. Then in 5B, the parent/gardenia.
You don't like gardenias?
Well, I do, but the A should be removed. Other than that, I'm good.
All right, perfect. Board Member Schneider, any adjustments on page 1?
No other adjustments.
Okay, all right. So I have a short list. All right, so this is a brand new policy, correct? Mm-hmm. All right, see, we have prior revision dates, and it's probably just a copy paste, but could we remove those? And then do we need to note, it is proposed, but is it No, I just answered my own question. Yes. So if we could just remove those prior revision dates because this is a brand new policy, and then if we could back up to the title, because I got ahead of myself, should this be, for consistency's sake, intermediate school athletics and activity code? Because that's how the previous one for high school reads. Or is there a reason it's intermediate school athletics rules and regulations?
No. we
So
should-
I did pose this question to
Joel?
Mr. Beard when we were revising this policy. And because they currently use a form that's called rules and regulations, he suggested to keep it this way because that's what they actually sign and use for the parents during the intermediate athletics.
I would propose that we specify that form when we talk about what they need to sign, but for the consistency of policy nomenclature, and I want to hear from other board members, but I would want this to be consistent to how we name the high school policy. So that would be intermediate school athletics and activity code. Other board members, what are your thoughts? I'm getting some, okay, head next. So we'll change it to intermediate school athletics and activity code, but definitely hold on to the name of that form because we'll insert that where appropriate. All right, I'm fine with number 1. With number 2, grades will be checked on the 2nd and 4th Wednesday of each month. And then as it currently reads, if you go down, if someone has an F, they run it the next week. And what is currently happening, I know at least at one of the intermediate schools, is that those checks are currently weekly. So if we could just put a question there, because I want to make sure that our practice matches our policy. And it could be that this is absolutely correct, but I know the current policy, at least one of the intermediate schools, is they're running those grades weekly. Ms. Dooley, could you just make a note that that is a unresolved question that we have? And then my other question was, so if a student athlete has an F, the student athlete will become ineligible for the following week. So if this is run on Wednesday and I have an F, if we have a game on Thursday, I can still play in that game as this policy currently reads because I won't be ineligible until the following week. So instead of for the following week, could we put until the following? Because that would include the moment the F is discovered until the following week or when the F is resolved. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. So the proposal for that would be the student athlete will become ineligible. Well, if we can just put the student athlete will be ineligible until the following week. But then it's contingent on if the F is resolved. So should we just say that the student athlete will be ineligible until not the F is resolved? Help me, Dr. Q, like what's the word? Until the student is passing all of their classes.
Until they regain eligibility is how we currently have it written.
Okay, so the student will
Does not, so student athletes' grades will be run again on the following Wednesday. If the student athlete does not have an F, the student athlete will regain eligibility.
Okay, so in A, when we say grades will be checked, okay, and then you go to the next sentence, if a student athlete has an F, the student athlete will become ineligible.
Yep. Will be ineligible until the following week.
But not necessarily unless I get that F resolved.
Well,
So it's not the time, it's
right.
that there's no longer an F.
Right, until the following week. Oh, I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
Or,
Say the student athlete is ineligible until the following week.
Well, no, it's until they get that grade, until they no longer have an F.
But we wouldn't know because he's only gonna run it again the next week. So until the following week still would apply.
No, but if I still have an F the following week, I'm not eligible because it's the next week if I still have an F.
I see. Well, let's just, yeah. We could just,
Until you no longer have an F.
right.
And that could be 3 weeks from now.
Right, we should just simply say will be ineligible, period, because B then says, okay, they're ineligible, and the student
It tells when they regain. I like
That's
that. Okay, everybody on the same page? So the student will, can we just say immediately become ineligible?
yeah,
Okay, and then B talks about regaining eligibility. All right, perfect. Thank you for pulling me off of that hamster wheel, Dr. Kieser. All right. Oh, okay. So 3B, lost or damaged equipment must be paid for. So, okay, maybe I'm a little bit of a contrarian, but I'm like, by whom? Do we need to specify by the parent or guardian? Because I can say, well, the district can pay for it.
yes.
Or I could be overthinking it. I'm open to feedback. So lost or damaged equipment must be paid for by the parent or guardian.
Yes.
Everyone, okay. Okay, and then since we did say hopefully Ms. Dooley, you will remember our language about the sign-out sheet. If we could just be consistent with this. So 4A, students must also return to school by the same mode of transportation unless a parent/guardian requests in person and gives written permission to take the athlete home. So how about unless a parent or guardian, what did we say, Ms. Dooley?
I specifically remember this one was a little different because these are younger students.
Yep.
And Mr. Beard specified that no, there are no exceptions. The parent has to both request it in person and also give written permission to take that student.
But the written permission is the sign-out sheet. And I have to be in person to sign the sign-out sheet. So can we simplify it? Because if I'm signing that sheet, that means I'm there.
Right.
So unless a parent or guardian completes the sign-out sheet, or make it sound better.
Well, I was gonna say, we'll look back and see how we
Yeah,
worded
what
it.
did we say and I'll give you a minute. But if we could just be consistent and just streamline that. All right, and then we're gonna pull that pin, Board Member Simrao, because I had some of the same concerns. When we're looking at 5A for sportsmanship, and I get this as an ask, Dr. Kieser, so feel free to push back and say if this is reasonable to have for our next meeting, and I'm fine with, Amy, it might take, so
Yep.
be transparent with your feedback. You got it, Ms. Dooley, okay, perfect, thank you. The level of specificity and the way you all work to lay it out in the policy that we just finished, that 9-pager, I just want to be very clear for what we're saying. So racial comments, taunting, and other derogatory remarks made while being involved in intermediate sports will result in very severe consequences. So if we can, and we want to be consistent, so whatever that falls, like whatever type of violation that is, we put that consequence, and it's the same thing. So the same for our bigs is the same for our mediums. That if it's the first time, you get this consequence. If it's the second time, you get this. And then the other question I had, and it goes back to when they signed that contract, that's a 12-month contract. This specifies while being involved in an intermediate sport. So if I use a racial comment and it's in the classroom, does that impact me as an athlete or as a student who participates in an activity?
Joel and I will investigate that and we'll bring
Okay.
it back.
I am leaning, not that anyone asked, I am leaning towards yes, because I want our students at the intermediate level, when they sign that contract, this is 12 months. I don't want that to be new when they get to the high school. And then whatever violation type that falls under, if we could list that here, and then first, second, third. So board members, just to give some feedback as they go back and rework that, For activities, are you comfortable with having the same consequences at the intermediate level, 5 hours, 10 hours, 15? For the number of violations for activities?
Yeah.
Okay, and then again, same consequences, 1 game, et cetera, as same as the high school policy?
Yeah.
All right, so perfect. So that is our feedback, and I know you and your team are going to handle that beautifully. Okay, so the next question I had was when it talks about technical fouls. Let me back up so my thoughts are making sense. Very severe consequences, we're going to clean that up. It's not going to be vague, it's going to be outlined, which can include ineligibility from any sport for the remainder of the school year or further. Unsportsmanlike penalties and technical fouls fall under this category. I say we omit that and we handle it by the violation type, and we're patterning it after the high school, because if I get a technical, okay, I'll use my kid, he won't mind. Sean got a yellow card in soccer. So let's say that's tantamount to a technical. That's going to be resolved in the game. And what this says now is that a student could face additional consequences if they got a yellow card or they got a technical. I just personally don't think that's, I don't see the point in penalizing them for something that was already resolved in the game. But like before, I could be wrong. So I want to hear feedback.
I'll say if we're going to work on mirroring the high school as far as the offenses, I think you're absolutely right. We omit that because it'll be cleaned up as
Okay.
part of the.
Okay, does anyone feel differently? Okay, all right. Sorry, Sean, I divulged. You got a yellow card. Okay, that's all I have for page 1. For page 2, Board Member Simra, any adjustments?
No adjustments.
Okay. Board Member Schneider, same question.
No adjustments.
Okay. My concern is, and I think it'll be resolved for the work that's going to be done on page 1, but when it says principals, athletic supervisors, and coaches/advisors may suspend an athlete for 1 or more competition or for longer for the following, I would say we omit all of that because it's going to be handled
Yes.
prior. Okay, perfect. So we'll omit 6A.
If I could
Okay, and actually,
interject
could we just
here?
omit 6? Because okay. Yes, Attorney Love.
Yes, I think that if you look at, on page 1, the area that we were just talking about, sportsmanship, that's designed to address in-game conduct. And then the 6, personal conduct, the A and B that we're looking at right now, this is designed to address or impose consequences for other types of behavior. So when you say pattern it after the high school, I think that's exactly what you're going to do, but that's going to be in this section here, the personal conduct.
Okay. No, I see that. So the high school patterning will happen in 6. So do we need 5? Because if it's happening during the game, won't that be resolved in the game via the referees?
Yes. Typically, when you have issues during the game, they'll be resolved in that game.
Although I just talked myself out of that because, so that's things like technical files, I would say yes. But if someone is doing racial comments, taunting, etc., I don't know that that would be resolved within the game because it's not a part of the game, whereas a technical file is.
However, if that conduct is one that would be tantamount to, say, the example we were talking about with fighting, it would be handled as a school issue, and if they've signed the code card, then the appropriate consequence would be administered at that time.
Okay, so 5A should be omitted because it's going to be captured in 6 that's going to be patterned after the work we just did in the high school. So 5B would be 5A. Is everyone on board with that?
Yes.
Okay, so just to recap, 5A will be omitted because it's going to be addressed in 6, and 5B will become 5A. All right, anything that I missed?
I don't think so.
Okay, let me do a check-in because I'm a proponent of self-care. Do we have the capacity to completely shift gears and move to 8:30, 8:30 Rule 1, and 8:30 Rule 2? Or would we like to close for the evening, and we've done great work? We will briefly address, once we get a couple questions cleared up, and be able to move policy 377 and rules 1 through 3. So that will be handled at the beginning of our April meeting, and then we dive in and completely shift gears to the 8:30 set with rules 1 and 2. Ooh. What is our preference?
I'm good with running through these, as I personally don't have a lot to change, but that's up to you guys.
Okay. Board Member Schneider?
Let's address these.
Okay, perfect. All right, Ms. Dooley, before we close out at 377, any questions for us?
I'm good.
All right, perfect. All right, we are on policy 830, page 1. Board Member Simra, any adjustments?
No adjustments.
Okay, same question, Board Member Schneider?
No adjustments.
Okay. My only thing, for level 3, designated resident nonprofit group, could we omit that and just say nonprofit? Because residents is already captured as a part of level 4, unless there's something I'm missing. Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, so level 3 on page 1 says designated resident nonprofit group. And at first I thought it was just missing a comma like a designated resident and then nonprofit group, but resident individuals are captured under level 4. So unless there's a reason to specify a designated resident nonprofit group, could we just omit that and say level 3 nonprofit group / organization and governmental agencies?
So do we not want to differentiate between nonprofit groups that are in our community versus nonprofit groups that might be coming to us from out of state?
If there is a need, so
That's
that's the
difference.
reason for it? Okay.
So the designated resident is referring to a nonprofit group or organization. Anyone who isn't in that is in level 4, the other nonprofit group or organization.
Okay, so what are the boundaries? Is it our state? Is it our county?
It basically what we as a district have designated. So it gives us the flexibility to say, here are groups and organizations such as the Boys and Girls Scouts 4-H, the Boys and Girls Club, and so forth, that are within our community. And then we also have the latitude to say that here is a group that we are giving this designation to, maybe because they've worked with us for the past 15 years or something like that.
So if I wanted to do a rental, I would want to know what constitutes resident. Is that in your county? Is that in your state? Is there a reason we want to keep that intentionally broad? Because my concern is it opens the door for us to be inconsistent if it's not clear.
I think we can be more specific if we want to say designated county, or say county nonprofit organization and other, and then say
Can we just put Rock, I don't know, for certain, this is just personal, like the designated
Sure.
is bothering me. Can we say Rock County nonprofit groups? Or even if you want to say Wisconsin-based nonprofit group, I'm fine with either one. I just want to know what defines resident so that people know if they're level 3 or level 4.
I like putting it at Rock County.
Rock County? Okay, is everyone comfortable with that? Yes. Okay, so level 3 will be Rock County nonprofit groups / organizations and governmental agencies. And then and I know we had discussed with omitting specifics. Is everyone comfortable if we just have recognized civic youth groups and just end it there without the examples, because we took the examples out? So just to be consistent, the same way it is in B, recognized resident youth athletic groups / organizations. C, I'm fine with. D, I would actually omit because that is a specific group which we're steering away from. But I just want to confirm, like theater group Papas, and I know we do a lot of work with them, but would they be captured under one of the headers that already exist? Is a local community service organization or a civic group or youth activities or organization? Is there a reason that they're specifically listed is my question.
I do not know, other than perhaps that when someone suggested theater companies, that was the only one that came to mind.
Okay, could we just put theater companies?
I agree, and I think that it clears it up when we put the parameters of Rock County.
Okay,
So any nonprofit group or organization or governmental agency in Rock County is a level 3. If you are not in Rock County, you're automatically a level 4.
okay. So are we comfortable with theater companies and then omitting Papas? Because we haven't identified anyone else.
Yes.
And then faith organizations. All right, perfect. Okay, level 4, SDB staff. Should we again say Rock County residents?
Point of clarity.
Yes, ma'am.
Did we change the title for level 3?
Yes, Rock County nonprofit groups / organizations and governmental agencies. And then we'll omit in the including Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, 4-H, et cetera. They're definitely included, but we don't want to get in the habit of, because we're going to leave someone out. So we'll just keep it as broad headers. And then D will be theater companies. And then E, as it is, faith organizations.
Okay.
So for consistency with 4, SDB staff, are we comfortable with Rock County residents? And then, or other nonprofit groups / organizations? And that would be outside of Rock County?
I'm good with that, unless we want to be, when we talk about individuals, if we want to prioritize people in
In our district?
like the city and town of Beloit versus all of Rock County. So would we want to give preference to someone who lives in the city of Beloit over someone who lives in, say, Edgerton?
I think as a practice, we would. I'm comfortable with not specifically including that in policy, just have it as Rock County. And the reason is, I don't think we're going to run into two scenarios where someone from Beloit wants the pool, someone from Edgerton wants the pool.
Right.
And we can just handle that through practice. Is everyone comfortable with that? Okay.
So we'll change it to Rock County.
Please. So Rock County residents. All right. Board Member Simrall, page 2, any adjustments?
I have no adjustments.
Okay, same question, Board Member Simrall, or Board Member Schneider?
No adjustments.
Okay. Now here's my question. For 2, right after all of the red that is proposed to be omitted, as a limited public forum, school facilities will be made available to groups who fit the below criteria without regard to their viewpoint, purpose, or ideological affiliation. So what about hate groups? And I know that when it goes down, it says that the executive director of business services is authorized by the board to reject all applications for facility, and it lists those things. But so if someone from the Ku Klux Klan wants to reserve our pool, this says, yes, you're a go, unless there's a conflict.
And this one, I'm going to blank on the law.
But that's why we have attorney law.
That's exactly. So I'm foreshadowing that I'm kicking it to Attorney Love. Once you open up to outside groups, then you are obligated to be
So that's a
consistent.
yes.
I think
Yeah.
I think the answer is yes, but I can't remember the law that it falls under.
Okay, Attorney Love to the rescue.
Well, and I'm not going to be able to cite the specific law, but I mean, it's generally the Constitution and free speech, and if you're going to open it up, you can't make your determinations based on their, as it says, viewpoint.
Okay, all right, so I just,
Is it called fair use or something, or I forget what? Somehow I remember that from my ed law class.
so let's do this. We're going to take the spotlight off of
Yeah.
Dr. Keister and Attorney
Sorry.
Love. Could you cite that? And I think it's good for us to cross-reference that at the bottom so people understand that no matter the viewpoint, the et cetera, if it's open for all.
Yes.
So Ms. Dooley,
Yeah.
could you make a, oh yeah, go ahead.
We'll also, I mean, we'll cite to the law, but we'll also do a little bit of research to make sure there's no basis for excluding things like hate groups.
Okay, perfect. And Ms. Dooley, if you could make a note in that in the minutes so we don't miss that when it comes before us again. All right, so on page 2, the Executive Director of Business Services, do we want to also include or their designee?
Yes.
Okay. And that comes up a few times. So every time it says the Executive Director of Business Services or their designee, could we just add that? Oh, okay. So my next question, the Executive Director of Business Services or their designee is authorized by the board to grant or reject all applications for facilities use. What is the current process of alerting the board that a facility is being used? And then if we jump down to the next page, it says the board reserves the right to reject any application or revoke any approved application at any time when it is doubtful that the group will abide by the building use rules. Okay, so this is just specifically the building use rules, but we wouldn't be able to do that if we're not made aware that a building is being used. And I don't want to create an extraordinary amount of, but just to normalize that so we know to check here, and if we have any issues, we know when to address them. How does that currently work?
I can't speak to the specifics because Ms. Armstrong handled all of these. But to the broader question that in as far as the language is concerned, in essence the last time this was written and revised, it really talked about the board deferring its obligations around the property to in this case, the building service, the executive director of building services or designee, to do this work. In the event that there is ambiguity, that individual would reach out to the board through the superintendent to get, like, this one's an iffy one, board, are you comfortable with this? And if the board said, nope, we're not comfortable with it, ultimately the board could say, we're not going with it.
So here's the thing. I am, as a board member, I feel that it's my responsibility. If there's something that we need to review, then we have to have a process for how we're made aware. And I could only see the board even providing input in like an extreme circumstance. But since it's here in policy, there has to be a vehicle for the board to be made aware. And it can be for information only, like these are the building use. And I would say included on whatever form already goes before the board. So, I'm drawing a blank. So we used to have, before we changed the committee structure, tell me the name, I feel like I'm on a game show. Tell me the name of the committee that handled facilities issues.
But facility,
And you can bypass that? What
Facilities of
current
finance.
Okay,
Facilities of
perfect.
finance.
So the current committee, which I do not currently serve on.
business and operations.
Business, perfect. So as a part of the Business and Operations Subcommittee, building use is added to something that they already review, wherever it naturally makes sense. And then it's just our responsibility as a board member, if we have and it could be not that we want to revoke it, but we have a question. But my point is it has to be brought to the attention of the board in case we have input.
So I'm just going to say this.
Yes.
For every facility use, because this is talking about every facility use, including the school district facility use. So that's going to slow down all of that work if we wait, because that committee only convenes once a month.
Okay. So
That's why it was deferred, and really the board, the way the language is written, from my perspective, it really is saying, we as a board are empowering this specific individual to do this work, and that individual's responsibility is, if there is ambiguity or concern, they are to go directly to the board and not go in any other direction.
Okay, so the way you're describing it, which I think I might be fine with, takes the onus off of the board.
Correct.
And it's on that person. If there's an issue
It
and
goes
they
back
don't
to-
bring it to the board,
Then
that's on them.
it becomes their issue, and then I have to deal with that. because I
Okay,
direct
everybody on the same page, we're comfortable with that? All right, perfect. Then I am fine with, which we didn't officially get to, but anything for page
Could I-
3? Yes, please.
Could I just make a suggestion then?
Yep,
Because on page 2, it says that the executive director of business services is authorized by the board to grant or reject all applications for facilities use.
yes,
But then on page 3, it says the board reserves the right to
Yep.
reject any application. If you change that to the district reserves the right, it might make it more clear that, because when you say the board, it's like the board's going to act, as opposed to you've delegated that responsibility to the director of business services.
I'm actually fine with it the way it is, because I think it's appropriate for the board to reserve the right. And the way I read that is if in an extreme circumstance, but the day-to-day, run-of-the-mill, all of the ones you see, then it goes in parallel with the executive director of business services or their designee is authorized by the board. So that's the regular, that's the norm. And then the exception is that the board could reject an application, but it's just that, an exception. So I'm fine with both of those things coexisting. How do other board members feel about that?
I'm okay with the way it is.
Okay. Board members, okay, I'm getting some head nods. So we will hold this policy only to get legal clarification so that we can do the cross-reference at the bottom. So Ms. Dooley, thank you for taking note of that, and Attorney Love, thank you for getting us that information. So this should be a quick review when we see it again. All right, we're going to move to Policy 830, Rule 1. Board Member Simra, anything on page 1?
I just have A10, there's he, she again.
Okay.
That's all I got.
We'll get those cleared up. Board Member Schneider, same question.
Under A1, the second sentence, the board and the executive director of. We have a duplication of
No,
words.
yep.
Yes.
Okay.
And then we'll add the or their designee
Yeah.
in there. And then the same, we need the or their designee language for number 5. And I think we're good on page 1. Board Member Simra, page 2, any adjustments?
No adjustments.
Okay. Board Member Schneider, same question.
I think under B, 1G, it says all groups in levels 1, 2, 3, and 4. We need to reference where that is located, since those terms are not used in Rule 1. They are in the main policy.
Okay, and I just had levels 1 through 4. Is everyone okay with that? In
Yeah.
policy 830?
Correct.
Okay. Anything else for page 2? There we go with page 2. Okay. So the or their designee language will need in number 15. For B, it seemed a little awkward to me. Facility use fees, and then the very first one is facility use without a fee. But if everyone else is okay with that, I can live with it. Like, this is for fees, but first let's start with without a fee. We already addressed G, so we can jump down to 2, rental basis. Instead of groups other than those listed in the facilities use with a fee section above, could we just say level 5 groups may use the school facilities? Because 1 through 4 is without the fee. And so instead of having that be very wordy, is everyone comfortable with 2A, beginning with level 5 groups, outlined in policy 830, may use the school facilities upon payment of fees as outlined in the district's facility use fee schedule? Okay,
That's fine.
all right. Moving on to page 3. Board Member Simra, any adjustments?
No adjustments.
All right. Board Member Schneider, same question.
I was looking at D at the top of the page. The district may require such cash bond, or would it be a cash bond? As in its discretion will ensure, just seems awkward wording to me.
Okay. Attorney Love, help us. How about the district may require a cash bond to ensure that a group will pay the rental fee in full? Is everyone okay with that?
Yeah.
Okay. Anything else, Board Member Schneider, on page 3?
Under E2, these amounts may be adjusted depending on the rise of exposure factors. To make it better, maybe it would be on the, depending on the increase of risk factors. Might make it more understandable to people who are reading the policy.
And do we need to outline give examples, like a non-exhaustive, because I have no idea like, are you cooking with an open flame? Is that, I don't have a context for what that means.
Right.
We are
So what-
on page 3, E2.
What if you say these amounts may be adjusted
If you could
at
repeat that,
the-
Board Member Schneider.
I'm suggesting that you could say that these will be adjusted at the district's discretion to address,
Risk exposure.
right, something along, risk exposure or liability.
Do you have a preference of risk exposure or to address liability concerns, or are those two completely different things in the law?
No, those are, either one of those would be sufficient.
Okay. Are we fine with these amounts? These amounts may be adjusted by the district to address risk concerns? Okay. Do we need to outline, because I have no idea what that is, unless, like I said, you're cooking with an open flame, or do we have the responsibility to, not an exhaustive list, but to outline what that looks like?
I don't think so. I think that, I couldn't even identify for you
Okay.
what those might be, but someone may make an application and it brings reason to pause and say, whoa, wait a minute, this could
That's
create
it.
some additional liability, in which case, you don't know it till you see it.
That sounds reasonable. Everybody comfortable with that? Yeah. Okay. If we could jump back up to C, because we need the or designee language in C. Board Member Schneider, I apologize. Did you have anything else for page 3?
No, that is it.
Okay. Roman numeral, so E3, in order to rent with or without fee, district facilities, applicants/users must agree to abide by and be subject to all rules/regulations for use of the district facilities. We keep going down. And applicable board policies, including board policy 830 and 830 rule 1. And we need to include 830 rule 2. If applicable, because that's only if they're going to use the kitchen.
Yep.
So if we could, where it says and, hold on, and policy, and 830 rule 2, parentheses, if applicable. So if they're using the kitchen, then that's all I had for 3. All right, last page of this policy, number 4, Board Member Simrau, any adjustments?
I do not have any adjustments.
Okay, Board Member Schneider, same question.
Under C2, the second line, there must be at least 2 adults. It should be plural.
Okay. Anything else?
That is it.
Okay.
Athletic director should be, throughout this section, should be changed to director of athletics and activities.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Okay, so C2, we're talking about in-service for staff shall be done once per month. Do we want to be specific? Because it's not all staff that needs the in-service related to the pool. So which staff is connected to the pool, Dr. Kieser? Is
So
that-
typically it would be the lifeguards who would be working that the pool area. So I would say, it's here. I've just lost where you're at.
No, C2, that's second to the last sentence. So like our PE instructors who teach swim.
I would say for appropriate staff.
Okay. So if we could just change that to in-service Attorney Love, is that too vague? We wanted, the sentiment is any staff that uses or supervises the pool. Could we say, well, let me back. Okay, lifeguard certification shall be kept in the pool office and shall be updated as needed and in service for all staff who utilize or supervise the pool?
I wouldn't want the word utilize. All staff who
Would
because
supervise
this
cover
for
us?
people who are assigned to work, they're supervising or working. Is that correct, Dr. Kieser?
Yes, because you could theoretically have students who might be hired on to do.
They do for the younger grades, they help
So-
with, okay.
So you want to be broad enough that you're encapsulating a wide variety of people and not being, but not so restrictive.
So a couple questions. So that would be staff and students,
Well, in that case, they would be staff for the pool.
even though they're a student?
Even though they're a student, they would be
Okay.
hired as a staff.
So how about all pool staff?
All pool staff.
And that happens once a month, the in-service?
I can check on that.
Okay, it's great. I just want to make sure that we're compliant with policy. So Ms. Dooley, could you highlight that question needs to be resolved? But we will say shall be updated as needed and in service for all pool staff shall be done once per month. And we just need to confirm that is our practice.
Right, and I would point out and that's the point where if you don't do that, you would increase your liability.
Right.
If you say, because if you recognize by policy that that's something that's necessary, and you don't do that and someone is injured in
Yep.
using the pool, that will increase your liability.
So if you could just find if that's once a
negligence.
Thank you so much, Attorney Liv. So that's like once a quarter, whatever that time designation is, we want to make sure that matches our policy. All right, so we'll hold on to this group as well until we get these questions resolved, and then we'll be able to move everything forward together as a group. The community use fee schedule. Any questions or concerns, Board Member Simra, with the use fee schedule?
No.
Okay. Board Member Schneider, same question.
No.
All right, so here's my question. The outdoor field or track is no charge. So, and then if we couple that with, if an applicant charges a fee for participation, and then you scroll down, it's 4 times the stated fee. So if you sell tickets to something, then whatever this charge is, multiply it by 4, correct?
Correct.
So let's say I want to rent out a track, the Fruzen track, and I want to sell tickets to have an outdoor concert. 4 times free is still free. Do we need to address that, or should we just let it lie? And anyone who's not watching this recording, how do we handle that?
I'm reviewing this in terms of, so the space per hour might be free, and that's in part the wear and tear of the field and all of that. But there's still the application as far as custodial staff and all of that is a part of that. So the outdoor track and field might not be any charge, but you're gonna have a lot more custodial staff and staff to clean up that facility at the end.
So could we just put a statement that these are amounts in addition to the hourly custodial fee rate?
Sure.
Okay. And do we need to say anything, or is it already included about like liability, et cetera? I'm sure that's already included. I'm just not looking at it right now.
That's in the policy rule that we just reviewed.
Okay. All right. So we will just add on a sentence in that box where it says if applicant charges, we'll put a period at the end of that and say this is in addition to any necessarily okay, so this is in addition to any hourly custodial fees.
Correct.
Okay, everybody good with that? Yep. All right. Theater staff, is there a reason why its rates vary? And is there a separate schedule for that somewhere?
I do not know why it says rates vary. My only anticipation is that theater staff are a mix of
Students
and teaching staff, and so we pay them at their rates and not a standard set rate.
Could we get clarification on that and just put a statement in there so people have, like, who do I need to go to or to find out what, okay. If I want to rent the theater and I need lighting or someone to do sound, at least point them in the right direction.
Okay.
So Ms. Dooley, thank you for making note of that. All right, we have arrived at policy 830, rule 2, which is our last policy we'll be reviewing this evening. Page 1. Board Member Simrau, do you have any adjustments?
I do not have any adjustments.
All right. Board Member Schneider, same question.
No adjustments.
All right. I have a couple things highlighted. So if we go to that first paragraph where it talks about the WIC Reauthorization Act, if we could capitalize the A in Act. And then just a question. Okay, so number 1, no use of government commodities or supplies will be allowed. All rules governing federal inventories will be followed. Everyone but me knows what that means, and no need to clarify.
And to me, this is for our food service people. They understand what that means. So I'm fine with that.
So in this policy, lay people could be using the kitchen, and we'll get to some of the iterations. So for example, if we put a pin in that and then go to 2, district food service staff, is there a reason we don't want to allow a state of Wisconsin certified food manager, that it has to be exclusive to district staff if they are a state of Wisconsin certified food manager?
Reason we moved from, so we talked about this and wanted to clarify what does a state of Wisconsin food service manager, like, what is that? Mm-hmm. In reality, with the equipment that we have in our kitchens, district food service staff are not only certified food managers, but they are also trained on all the equipment. So to the question, can lay people use the kitchen? Absolutely. The food service staff member is there to provide in-service so that people don't injure themselves, and they are also compliant to ensure that the district isn't held liable for any food that is coming out of our kitchen. For example, if we allow an outside organization to use our kitchen, and someone gets sick from that, we still may be at some risk. The food service staff manager is ensuring that all of the proper codes, food service codes, are being followed while that kitchen is being used. That it includes our food trucks. So if an organization like the Nightingales want to use the food truck, you will have a food service staff member there to assist to ensure that everything is being followed to code, while the Nightingales might be the ones actually serving the food and so forth.
So here's my concern. Monopolies make me nervous, and all of the things that you just described for the district food service staff, it makes complete sense. I'm of the opinion that if someone is a state of Wisconsin certified food manager, which in the spirit of disclosure, I don't know the ins and outs of that, but they would also be able to do the things that you outlined that our district food service staff would be able to do. And I'm hesitant to only say it's our district food service staff that could serve in that role.
Well, it would be no different than saying that when you come and use our facilities, you are paying for our custodial staff to clean the space. We wouldn't allow someone to say, we're going to rent out the bar and oh, we don't need any custodial staff. We'll do all the cleanup and make sure that everything's turned off and put away the way it is. We still require them to use our custodial staff. This is that same process, but with our kitchen.
So, and I'm fine with being wrong, but I would see it slightly differently. I'm going to bring in my own certified custodian. So it's not me doing it, but I want to bring in my own certified custodian. Would be apples to apples, in my opinion, to using the district's, let me get the verbiage right, the district food service staff or a state of Wisconsin certified food manager. Other committee members, what are your thoughts on that? Are you fine with eliminating the option to have a state of Wisconsin certified food manager?
The thing that I guess I was going to address it on the next page, but On the next page, in 2B, prepare and cook and serve food with the instruction and assistance of a certified food service manager. I don't know.
Yeah, that was a miss on my part. Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, if we're gonna leave that out or not use that, then I think we need to adjust that as well. But I'm not real experienced in whether we should include food service manager or not.
Okay. We thank you for pointing that out. We'll definitely make sure that our verbiage is consistent, whichever direction we decide to go into. Board Member Schneider, what are your thoughts?
I guess the concern what I have would be is if we brought in a Wisconsin certified food manager, that they are not familiar with any of the equipment we have, especially the food truck. But then they also would have to bring in all of their own cleaning supplies, or are we going to open the cleaning supplies here? Just as you mentioned with the custodian, if you bring in your own certified custodian, are they bringing in all of their own equipment?
No, that's a good question.
If not, because they would not have access to the school equipment, which is kept in locked areas. And I think the same thing would apply if we looked at bringing in your own Wisconsin certified food manager, is then, do we give them access to all of our supply area or not? So we're opening up some of that liability issues with possible damage to school equipment or missing or so on.
No, that very valid points. Thank you both. Dr. Kieser, could you get us information on what exactly does it mean to be a state of Wisconsin certified food manager? Because it was there and we were fine with it being in policy before. I just want to make sure that there is a reason for us to exclude anyone but our current staff. And once we have more information about what that entails, that may answer some of these other questions. Thank you. So Ms. Dooley, if you could just have a note that we want to get more information about what it means or what are the criteria to be a state of Wisconsin certified food manager. And then Board Member Simrau, thank you for pointing that out on the next page. Whichever direction we go, we'll just make sure that our language is consistent. Back on page 1, approved by the Executive Director of Business Services, Food Service Director, or their designee. And should that be and? Is it or is it we need both of them? Because there's just a comma there now.
I actually saw one in 7 there. I would say that
Oh, it says and. Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
I would say that or their designees.
Okay, but it needs to be both of them or
Correct.
both of their designees.
Well, the food service director works underneath the executive director of business services, and the executive director of business services signs off on the final application. So it will be an and because both of them will see it.
Okay, perfect. So Ms. Dooley, if we can get that and there and then add designee language and then also repeat that designee language for number 7. And then my final question on page 1, for number 6, when it talks about non-school organizations or groups and it talks about the food trucks and they can use our food trucks and employ their own staff. Which led me back to, could their staff include a state of Wisconsin certified food manager? And my additional question, similar to the concert that's going to happen on the field at Fruzen, could we be allowing people to rent out our food trucks to do pop-up restaurants? Because this is clearly saying they can rent our food trucks and then hire their own staff as long as they have workers' compensation, insurance, et cetera. Do we want to put any parameters on that since we've put our toe in the water of addressing it in policy? Does that make sense?
It does make sense. we ultimately have say in terms of how the food trucks are going to be utilized, and in part having the district food service staff who are trained in all of this. So that isn't to say that you might not have a certified chef as a part of an organization that is utilizing the food trucks. But yes, we do want our food trucks to be, we have that potential to be a fundraising source for our organizations and our district. So I'm open to putting parameters on that, but right now we left it broad because at the end of the day, the food service director and the executive director of business services can say, no, that we're not comfortable with that, and then work it out individually on a case-by-case basis.
Okay, and I would be more comfortable if we were a bit more clear, because again, here, we're saying that someone who is renting our truck can employ workers to work on the truck. So if we could just have some clear language around any restrictions that we might want to put on that, I think that would be useful. So Ms. Dooley, if you can make a note that we'll circle back to that as well. All right, last page, guys.
Okay. Before we change
Yes.
to the last page,
Yep.
what are the restrictions for the drivers of the food truck? That's not mentioned at all. So are we requiring special things? Do they have to have a certain license to be able to do that, to use the vehicle?
Or if we're renting it out, are we responsible for driving it to the location and then it has to remain stationary? I
Correct.
just think,
Yeah.
we should put that in there.
Okay.
Right.
So they don't, it's not, I started here and then I went there. We should be clear about that. Thank you so much, Board Member Schneider. That's a good point.
It says on the next page that only district or airline staff can operate the vehicle, implemental for the food truck.
Okay, so if we had Aramark staff on board, depending on which way we go, do we want Aramark staff driving from location to location with a food rental?
That would be, unless we wanted to establish that renting the food truck would be at a single location for the use, and not like I'm gonna rent the food truck for the day and we're gonna go to 7 different locations throughout the day.
As long as we have, a district or Aramark staff operating the vehicle. So if we don't want that to happen, I would be more comfortable if we put that in policy,
Okay.
that it's for a one location per application use.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. All right, this is good. Anything else before we go to page 2? Anything remaining on page 1 that we have not addressed? All right, page 2, Board Member Simra, any adjustments?
Like I said, the certified food manager verbiage, and then at the bottom of the page under catering, no outside food will be allowed, a capital N. That's pretty much all I have.
Okay, thank you. Board Member Schneider, anything for page 2?
I have nothing on page 2.
Okay, I just have a couple questions. For 2F, where it talks about Rock County Health Department recommends, the next sentence, use of the kitchen for after-school enrichment programs. Are those school-sponsored after-school enrichment programs? Or let's say if the boys, if an outside group comes in for an after, like Welty comes in and does projects, well, that would be school-sponsored. Do we need to clarify that it's a school-sponsored after-school enrichment program?
Yes, we can make that clarification. However, that would limit things such as partnerships with the Boys and Girls Club, or say,
Would a partnership be school-sponsored? Or, because if that's considered school-sponsored, if we're in partnership with them versus if a completely outside group wanted to come in and do an after-school program? Or am I overthinking it and we're fine with treating them the same?
Let me do a little bit more thinking of that, since how we're bringing this back.
Okay. Ms. Dooley, could you just make note that we'll put a pin in that question of whether or not we need to specify if the after-school enrichment programs, if there's any benefit in clarifying that that's school-sponsored? All right. The FSMC, I have no idea what that is.
Food Service Management Company.
Okay.
I had to look it up myself. So we'll
Okay,
spell
and
it
would
out.
that be Aramark?
So it could be Airmark. It could, if we specified Airmark because that's who we are.
We're currently using, but it might, okay. Yeah, if we could spell that out, that would be helpful.
Yes, I will spell that out, then put FSMC in parentheses.
Perfect. All right, last call for anything on that final page. All right, hearing nothing. Thank you so much, everyone. I know that was a lot of work, and we had a long night last night, so I appreciate everyone showing up again. For both of our attorneys, thank you so much for being present and prepared to guide us through. That brings us to 3A. Next meeting date is going to be Wednesday, April 6th. Same location. You can watch online. We will begin at 5:30. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second?
All right, there's a motion and a second to adjourn. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All right, that motion passes unanimously. Thank you so much, everyone. Good work.
Oops, good night, everybody.
Good night.
You have been removed from the call.